This is my sleep improvement tier list, where you are gonna find out which one of these methods is gonna help you build the most muscle. That is how important sleep is, because it doesn't matter how good the rest of your routine is. If you fumble the ball here, it's over. To rank all the sleep improvement methods, I prepared 4 different tiers. First is the non-negotiable tier. As the name implies, if you want to get the most gains out of your sleep, you need to do everything in this tier. Right below that, we have the very effective tier. The sleep improvement methods in this tier can make a massive difference in the quality of your sleep, so I highly recommend taking some inspiration from the methods in this tier. Then we have the helpful tier. While the methods in this tier might not result in a drastic change, at least most of the time, what they bring to the table can be that last little nudge that you need to get your sleep in check. And lastly, we have the avoid tier, which I don't think I need to describe any further. So first, let's just move the elephant out of the room right away. Sleeping on average 8 hours per night is just a must if you want to build the maximum amount of muscle and feel like a normal functioning human being. Of course, this varies from person to person. Some people can get away with just 7 hours, while others might need like 9 to feel normal. And that's completely fine. Everyone is different. You just don't want to be constantly sleeping for 5 hours each night, because that is not only gonna cut your gains short, but in the long term, probably your entire life. So getting enough sleep goes into the non-negotiable tier. I don't know about you, but where I live, every time it gets just slightly warm, all the construction crews just start spawning all over the place. And you already know that if they start a reconstruction of the nearby building, you will not be getting any sleep for at least the next 4 months. Which brings us to these 2 sleep accessories, and those are earplugs and a sleep mask. Based on your situation, these can really be a lifesaver, and that's not even over exaggerating it. I can tell you from my experience that if it wasn't for the earplugs, I would go clinically insane. I really can't imagine sleeping without earplugs during the drilling season. And the sleep mask can be equally as effective if you really can't make your room as dark as you would want, or if you come home from the night shift and the sun is already up. Because as you will see later, actually being in a dark environment makes a massive difference. And if you can't achieve complete darkness organically, a sleep mask or blackout blinds are your best friends. The situation with sleep masks is kinda weird nowadays though. There is a lot of those fancy masks that play you lullabies or whatever, but really, a super simple sleep mask made out of cotton or something like that is all that you need. Plus those sometimes feel even better than those bougie masks, at least in my opinion. So while these accessories are obviously not a must, they can be insanely helpful if you keep getting disturbed by some random noise, or if there is just way too much light when you go to sleep. So the earplugs and the sleep mask / blackout blinds go into the very effective tier. But do you know what else is very effective? That's right, it's the beginner bundle, which is the complete package that includes a training, nutrition and a cardio guide, which was designed to teach you the basics of each category without getting overwhelmed. If that sounds good, you can learn more about it by clicking the first link below. Now let's put another thing into the list, and that is blocking blue light before the bed. And while it certainly works to some degree, it really is a very small puzzle piece in the grand scheme of things. The best thing you can do is just not look at screens before bed altogether. But hey, if you do anyway, it's probably for the best if you at least used a night filter for your screen. And while it will not change your life, it can give you a small little sleep improvement which deserves to be put into the helpful tier. But do you know what is not helpful at all? Eating a crap load of food before bed. And not in like a don't eat any carbs after dark type of way. Simply eating a lot of any food before the bed will result in you not really being able to fall asleep. It's pretty self-explanatory. When you eat something, your body needs to digest it. It needs to work. And if your body is busy working on digesting all the food, going to sleep isn't very high on its priority list. You could get away with some small lighter meals that are mainly protein, but eating a meal with a lot of carbs and especially fat is gonna make your body work overtime. And you will definitely notice that, because your body will be all hot and unable to fall asleep. So eating a heavy meal before going to bed is something you should definitely avoid. As I just told you, when your body gets hot, it's super difficult to fall asleep. That is why it's very important that your room is on the cooler side of things when you go to sleep. For some people, that is impossible to control. I, for example, have no real way of controlling the temperature of my bedroom. All I can do is put up blackout blinds, open up the window later at night and hope that it will be alright. But if you get an AC or some kind of device that can make your room colder, I highly recommend you try setting the temperature a little lower. You might be surprised how big of a difference it actually makes. That's why it deserves to go into the very effective tier. Which brings us to supplementation, which on one hand can be pretty good, but on the other, not so much. You might have heard that supplementing with magnesium and zinc can improve your sleep, which is definitely true. But the thing is, you have to be deficient in magnesium and zinc in the first place. Otherwise, you probably won't notice any difference when you start supplementing. So yeah, this in some situations can be pretty helpful. But then we have the other side of supplementation, the more evil one. I'm of course talking about melatonin. And I gotta be honest, I have also used it occasionally. But that is the keyword, occasionally. Because taking it every single day is just not a good idea. As with basically anything that you take, your body creates some level of tolerance. You might have started with just a tiny nibble of melatonin and it felt more than enough, but after a couple of months it turned into one entire pill and then into two, and that's when you know you've got a problem. Melatonin is just a band-aid solution. So if you find yourself in a situation where you are dependent on melatonin to fall asleep, you have to get your sleeping basics and hygiene in check first. That should be your priority. Because once you get to a point where you take such a big dose of melatonin that it could put a horse to sleep, but it has no effect on you anymore, you have nowhere to go. And you never want to get to a situation like that. So my best recommendation is to just avoid melatonin altogether. But what you should definitely not avoid is doing some kind of physical activity throughout the day. Most people nowadays only go to the gym, and that's where their physical activity ends. But if that is the case, on your rest days or on the days where you had an easier workout, you will just not really feel tired, and it will be much harder to fall asleep. That is why I am such a big fan of active recovery days. But that is a video for some other day. The TLDR is that even if you don't go to the gym, you should do some other physical activity. I for example go rocking on my rest days, which gives me the same feeling as if I did a workout, which then makes it so much easier to fall asleep. And the funny thing is, having active recovery days instead of just sitting around can actually help you recover faster. But as I said, that is a video for another day. All I can say that even just walking a couple thousand steps can definitely make a difference. That's why doing some kind of physical activity is going into the very effective tier. But what is really responsible for getting that high quality sleep that allows you to build as much muscle as possible is following the circadian rhythm. Understanding and following the circadian rhythm is one of the most important things on this tier list. Simply put, the circadian rhythm is your body's internal clock that tells you when to feel awake and when to feel sleepy. This is mostly dependent on light and dark. That is why when it gets dark, you automatically start feeling sleepy. And when the sun starts shining in the morning, you slowly start feeling more and more ready for the day. That's why the most ideal scenario is going to sleep at some reasonable nightly hour and then actually waking up in the morning, not going to sleep at 4 AM and then waking up at 3 PM. That will guarantee you very poor sleep quality, which will just be confirmed by how bad you will be feeling when you wake up in the middle of the day. I know that some of you are working night shifts, and in that scenario, it is what it is, mate. All you can do in that case is just putting on a sleep mask and earplugs and praying to God that you will not feel super terrible. You gotta play the hand that you have been given. But if you are just staying up super late for absolutely no reason, that is entirely on you. So if you are in a situation where you can follow the circadian rhythm, it's absolutely non-negotiable to do so. But what you should definitely not do is be on your phone in bed. I know that we always joke around with it in these sleep-focused videos where I say, there is definitely someone watching this video in bed at 3 AM. And then someone comments, I'm literally watching this in my bed at 3 AM, and then we all laugh about it together. But this really makes it so much more difficult to fall asleep. Staring into a screen and doom scrolling is one thing, but doing it in your bed makes it 1,000 times worse. You want to keep your bed as a holy space that is only for sleeping. If you want to watch videos before the bed, do it on your PC or watch your TV in the living room. Is that good? No, but it's so much better than watching videos in bed. You need to teach your body that going to bed actually means going to sleep. It might not seem like that big of a deal, but it really is. It's the same exact reason why you shouldn't be laying in bed all day playing your PlayStation. Remember, going to bed means going to sleep, and that is absolutely non-negotiable. Now we have to talk about sleep tracking accessories like those wristbands or rings. These can definitely be helpful to see what is going on, but if you are that type of person to get stressed out by seeing how bad your sleep is, which then makes your sleep even worse, then you are probably better off staying away. Or if you tend to get really over-obsessed, then you might be better off just passing on these trackers. It really just depends on what type of person you are. If you are a data-driven person and you enjoy it, absolutely, go for it, why not? But it is definitely not a must-have by any means. For the right person, it can be pretty helpful, and that's why it's going exactly into that tier. When it comes to sleep, we of course can't forget about one thing in particular, and that is caffeine. Because a ton of people are completely unaware of how long it takes all the caffeine to exit your system. If we take a can of Monster as an example, which has like 160 milligrams of caffeine, you would think that the entire caffeine amount will completely fade away relatively quickly. But that is not really the case. There can still be some traces of caffeine like 8 to 12 hours later after you consumed it. So you might think that downing an energy drink at 3 PM will be fine, but if you plan on going to sleep at like 10 PM, you will most definitely be affected by the leftover caffeine at least a little bit. The effects will of course depend on your genetics and your tolerance, but it is definitely something you should be at least aware of. I always recommend only consuming caffeine in the first third of the day. Any later than that will almost certainly decrease your ability to fall asleep. So only the first third of the day. That's non-negotiable. What is a very popular recommendation to do before going to sleep is reading a book or going for a walk. In one of my previous videos about sleep, when I talked about reading before bed, a lot of you guys said that it's not a good idea because the book really just sucks you in and you want to keep reading. I guess I didn't really consider the fact that some people like reading way too much. Because when I read before the bed, it's more in the style of, okay, I will go to sleep because I don't want to read anymore. But I guess some of you have it a little different. I'm a much bigger fan of going on a short walk before the bed. That's where the exact thing happens to me, where I would like to keep on walking even if I should already go to sleep. But I guess that is also not a perfect recommendation for everyone, because if you live in some sketchy area, this is probably the fastest way of getting mugged. If you can find an activity before the bed that fits you and does not involve a screen, then that will be definitely very helpful. And that is my sleep tier list. I hope you found it useful. And if you would like to get your journey on the right track, please don't forget to check out the beginner bundle by clicking the first link below. Thanks for watching and I will see you next time. If you like this video, then you will surely like this one too.